So one of my favorite things of all time, and I mean all time, is that there used to be a game room on the first floor of the Contemporary Resort Hotel that was an amazing game room. Let's go to the location, take a look at it, and I'll describe it for you and some of the things that I really liked about it. So the game room that they used to have here at the Contemporary Resort is where the Wave is now. And it was a really remarkable thing. You'd go down the same ramp and you'd be in there. And there was a little food court off to the right. And then off to the left was the game room. Now the game room, what it had in it was a shooting arcade, very much like the one that you see in the Frontierland arcade. But you got a better sense of it because distances were shorter and you were actually closer to things. So you could see them a little more closely. You could be getting engaged a little bit better. You could actually see how the system worked. There was also a little movie theater in the back where you could watch a Disney film that they would show periodically. And outside that theater, there was a bust, a fabric bust, head of a character, where they would put a face on it. And it was just like the Madame Leota at the Haunted Mansion. So you could actually see what they were doing and how that effect worked, and you could learn from it. It was really cool to be able to sit there and watch it and learn how it worked. And then, of course, the rest of it was arcade games. And it was a constantly changing set of arcade games, all the latest and greatest, from the early 1980s, and they were all really wonderful, and it was a lot of fun to play in there. I loved going in that arcade. I would actually leave the Magic Kingdom and come in here, just because it was such an amazing arcade. I have to tell you that there was really nothing quite like the Fiesta Fun Center. You'd go in and spend a couple of hours there, and it was a way to get out of the heat and have a little fun. Remember, these were the days before cell phones and other activities, so you'd have some fun things with some arcade games where you'd just be going over and enjoying yourself, and you didn't mind spending a few hours outside of the Magic Kingdom because it was so inexpensive to go, a few hours really didn't matter. You might grab a bite to eat and hang out for a little while, and then just keep playing the games. And then, of course, there was the shooting arcade that was very much like the one that they had over in Frontierland. But it was on a smaller scale, so you could really see how it worked and play around with it a little bit. Somewhere online, I found this schematic that someone had created for the actual arcade there in the Contemporary. And you can get a sense of its scale and kind of how it came together. It really was pretty remarkable what they were able to do there. It had different sections, and I think over time it changed a couple of times. But at the end, it was more like the Frontierland shooting arcade in the way that they set it up. The cool part was you could stand there and play around with it and see how the actual guns worked and what the laser did and how this technology worked, that you were shooting a light at a spot on a target and it would register a shot because you did that, and might have some interaction on the thing that's happening over on the far wall. And this is the basis for what became the Buzz Lightyear game as well. So at various times and various incarnations, there were different things in there. For a while, there was a lot of these air hockey tables, and there were a lot of different things that were around. At some point, it was more arcade games. It was really relevant to the time that you had, that you went in there. You can see the cinema in the back left corner where that light was up there. And yes, there was an actual cinema inside, and for a buck and a half, you could go see a first-run Disney movie, which was kind of cool in its own way. Small theater, but it worked. On the outside of the theater, there was a caricature drawing, much like you see other places around the resort now, but there weren't many of these at the time, and it was kind of fun to get your picture drawn in a fun way. There was also this other cool thing called Morgana, and this was an electronic device that would actually display a visual, a film, on the solid face that's there inside there, and would tell your fortune. This is actually what the Haunted Mansion is based on with Madame Leota. It's the same principle that's there, but you could stand there and look at this for a while and see how it worked. Here's a close-up of the actual head and how it looked before they projected an image on it. And here's what it looked like when they projected the image on it. This is cool. And as it turns out, as a kid who wanted to learn all of Disney's secrets, all you had to do was go into the arcade and you learned a lot about how the shooting gallery worked, how the Haunted Mansion worked, and a lot of other things while you were there. So it's a pretty remarkable place. Now, of course, this is not the only place in the Walt Disney World Resort that had some sort of an arcade. There was a penny arcade over in the Magic Kingdom. This one was a little bit different, but also clever. So I told you there were two game rooms that I really enjoyed. One was at the Contemporary, and the other one was here in the Magic Kingdom. And it was actually on the corner behind us here, where Casey's Corner expanded into. This used to be a game room that went behind all of the stores all the way down this side. Center Street used to cut through the middle of it, so it went down most of the block. And there was a game room that covered most of it and went through a lot of different things. There was a lot of fun things that you could do in there. Plus, it was a sort of a penny arcade, and they had the viewing machines where you could actually see the old-time movies, and you could do some other things like the flip machines and things, plus the game room. So let's go take a look at what it used to look like. We look at a map from around the period when the arcade was there, you can see it as number 8 over on the left side of the map. It's kind of in behind all the stores. Casey's Corner is there, number 12 on the corner. But you get a sense of how big it was and how far it extended. So this all used to be the game room in here. It was really pretty amazing. This was all just a giant game room before it became part of Casey's Corner. And you could walk through here and it went all the way back into here. It was as far back as this. I think that wall there, the faux wall, the partial wall, is where it used to end. And so it would end there and it would kind of head back into the area of the stores. But this was really neat because it was an interesting place where there were all these arcade games and it was a lot of fun to just play in there and just kind of hang out. And the games were always kind of fun. They had some older games in there like pinball and things like that that you didn't see other places anymore. By the time the 80s rolled around, most of those game rooms like that were gone. So it kind of harkened back to a simpler time. It was really pretty neat. It was all back in here. You kind of cut back and forth into the various shops along the way. And then you would come out, and you could come out into the shop this way and head back into the main street on the Magic Kingdom. So it was really pretty neat, but it's too bad it's gone now. It was a really pretty neat game room. So when it opened, it looked something like this. You would go in through the entrance on Main Street and head into the Penny Arcade. Right in front of you were the viewers where you could put a penny in and watch a moving picture, and then further back were the period piece arcade games. So it was really kind of a neat place to go and you would actually have some fun. Now, harkening back to the really old days, you could see what it looked like when it had the double-decker bus going up and down Main Street, so you got a sense of where it was relative to everything that was there. Now, just inside the doorway, you had a change booth, because you had to actually put real coins inside these machines. So you would put a penny or a nickel inside them and it would do whatever you were requesting it to do. So you had the change booth there, which was always kind of fun. It was always manned by someone. You also had this fortune teller that was out there, and you would put a coin in and she would tell your fortune. She would tell you what was going on. There were also two different kinds of viewing devices. There was a kinetoscope and a mutoscope. The kinetoscope was invented by Thomas Edison, and it looked something like this. You would put your head up to it, and you would actually put a coin in and watch a moving picture. It was about 30 to 45 seconds of a moving picture. It was about 500 frames of different still images that they would flip in front of you by putting a light on front of it. This was an invention that Edison came up with in the late 1800s or so that was kind of a clever thing. It was a motion picture thing, that's why it's kineto, and that would work. There were also something called Mutoscopes. These were a different type of technology, very similar in nature, but it was patented by Herman Kessler and W.K.L. Dickinson as an alternative to Edison's kinetoscope. Very similar sort of thing where you would watch a moving picture. This one was actually a little bit longer in terms of the way it worked, and slightly different in the way that the drum rotated to flip the pictures up. But otherwise it was essentially the same thing. So you would actually sit here and watch a moving picture from these different companies, whether it was Edison's or Kessler's, you would actually watch it. Now there were two other places in the Magic Kingdom that had games. The first was over in Tomorrowland, right next to Space Mountain. And this one had futuristic type games. I never really enjoyed it as much, but it was kind of fun. And the other one was in the Pirates of the Caribbean. It was in the room that's off to the side where they currently do the makeup for boys to make you up like a pirate. That was actually an arcade as well. Never really got into that one either, but it was there. Now, of course, there was also the arcade at the Polynesian Hotel. This one wasn't as good as the one in the Contemporary, but it was pretty entertaining and we did spend some time over there.